Imagine waking up in a hospital room with no memory of how you got there. Doctors surround you, but they are not trying to heal you. They are watching you, taking notes. You have been given a drug without your knowledge or consent. You don't know what it is. You don't know how long you've been here. You don't know that the men watching you work for the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States government. This was not a nightmare. This was a program, and it ran for over 20 years. Act 1. The Cold War Fear. The year is 1950. The Cold War is at its most paranoid. The United States and the Soviet Union are locked in a global competition for power, military, economic, and psychological. American intelligence officials are convinced that the Soviets have developed techniques for controlling the human mind. Brainwashing. Techniques that could make American soldiers confess to crimes they didn't commit, abandon their values, and work against their own country. The fear was not entirely irrational. During the Korean War, American prisoners of war had returned home, making statements that seemed to contradict everything they believed. Statements that appear to have been extracted through psychological manipulation. American officials were alarmed. If the Soviet had found a way to control human minds, the United States needed to find it first. And so, in April 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles authorized a program that would become one of the darkest chapters in American government history. He called it MKUltra. Act 2, what MKUltra was. MKUltra was not a single experiment. It was an umbrella program, a collection of over 150 separate research projects conducted at more than 80 institutions across the United States and Canada. These institutions included universities, hospitals, prisons, and mental health facilities. Many of the researchers involved did not know they were working for the CIA. Many of the subjects involved did not know they were being experimented on at all. The program investigated dozens of methods for controlling human behavior: hypnosis, electroconvulsive therapy, electric shocks to the brain, sensory deprivation, isolation in dark, silent rooms for days at a time, psychological manipulation, and most infamously, drugs, primarily LSD, but also mescaline, heroin, barbiturates, and a range of other chemical compounds administered to subjects without their knowledge or consent. The CIA wanted to know, could a drug be used to make a person tell the truth? Could it be used to erase a memory? Could it be used to make a person do something they would never otherwise do? Commit violence, betray their country, abandon their identity entirely? They tested these questions on mental patients, on prisoners, on drug addicts who were promised heroin in exchange for participation, on soldiers who were told they were participating in research on chemical warfare, but were not told what they were being given, on ordinary civilians who had no idea anything unusual was happening to them at all. Of all the individual stories connected to MKUltra, the most haunting is that of Frank Olson. Olson was a scientist working for the U.S. Army's biological weapons program. In November 1952, he attended a CIA retreat in rural Maryland. At the retreat, CIA operatives secretly dosed the drinks of several attendees with LSD. Without telling anyone, Olson, who had no idea what had happened to him, experienced a severe psychological reaction in the days that followed. He became withdrawn, paranoid, deeply disturbed. 9 days after being secretly drugged, Frank Olson fell from a window on the 13th floor of a New York City hotel and died. He was 43 years old. The CIA ruled as suicide. His family was told he had jumped. For more than 20 years, they believed it. In 1975, when MKUltra was first publicly revealed through a congressional investigation, the Olson family learned for the first time that Frank had been secretly drugged just days before his death. President Gerald Ford personally apologized to the family. The CIA paid them a financial settlement, but the family was not satisfied. In 1994, Frank Olson's body was exhumed. A forensic examination found evidence of a blow to the head that was inconsistent with a fall from a window, suggesting that Olson may not have jumped at all. The case was never conclusively resolved. The full truth of what happened to Frank Olson on that night in November 1953 has never been established. He remains, in some sense, MKUltra's most visible victim and its most unresolved mystery. Act 4. the institutions that participated. What makes MKUltra particularly disturbing, beyond the individual experiments, is the scale of institutional participation. This was not a rogue operation conducted by a handful of reckless agents in secret. It was a program that operated with the cooperation of some of America's most respected institutions. McGill University in Montreal conducted some of the most extreme experiments under Dr. Ewan Cameron. Funded through the CIA without Cameron's knowledge of the true source of funding, though he knew his work was connected to intelligence interests. Cameron subjected patients, people who had come to him seeking treatment for depression and anxiety, to weeks of drug-induced sleep, repeated electroconvulsive therapy at intensities far beyond any clinical standard, and a technique he called psychic driving, playing recorded messages on a loop to sleeping patients for hours, attempting to reprogram their behavior. Many of Cameron's patients emerged from his treatment worse than when they arrived. Some lost significant portions of their memories. Some lost the ability to function independently. Some never recovered. These were not prisoners or criminals. They were patients who had come to a hospital seeking help. Stanford University, Columbia University, Harvard University, hospitals across the United States and Canada, prisons in New York and Kentucky. The program was everywhere, and for over 20 years, almost no one knew. Act 5, the documents that survived. In 1973, as the Watergate scandal consumed Washington and congressional investigators began looking more closely at intelligence agency activities, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of all MKUltra files. Most of the program's records were shredded. The full extent of what had been done would never be known. But Helms's order was not completely carried out. In 1977, a routine Freedom of Information Act request uncovered approximately 20,000 MKUltra documents that had been misfiled in the Financial Records Building and survived the shredding order by accident. These documents formed the basis of the 1977 Senate hearings on MKUltra. The first time the American public learned the full scope of what their government had done, Senator Edward Kennedy, who chaired the hearings, called the program a sad chapter in the history of the CIA and of our country. The CIA acknowledged the program. It expressed regret. It paid settlements to some victims. And then, because most of the files have been destroyed, it became very difficult to hold anyone specifically accountable for specific harms done to specific people. Most of the victims of MKUltra never received compensation. Many never knew they had been subjected to experiments at all. Some are still alive today, elderly men and women carrying psychological damage whose origin they were never told. Closing sequence. MKUltra was officially ended in 1973. The Senate investigation of 1977 brought it into the public record. And yet, even today, because a majority of the files were destroyed, we do not know the full extent of what was done, to how many people, in how many places. What we know is this. The United States government, through its Central Intelligence Agency, ran a program for over 20 years in which American citizens and Canadian citizens were subjected to psychological and chemical experimentation without their knowledge or consent. Some were harmed permanently. Some may have died. The files that might tell us the full story are gone. MKUltra raises questions that have no comfortable answers. How does a democracy prevent its own intelligence apparatus from turning its methods against its own people? How do institutions, universities, hospitals, respected research centers, become participants in programs they should have refused? And how do we reckon with a history in which the protectors became, for a time, the threat? These questions do not have easy answers, but they are questions that every American deserves to ask, and to keep asking until the answers arrive. Fade to black. MKUltra ran from 1953 to 1973, over 20 years, over 150 research projects, more than 80 institutions, thousands of unwitting subjects. Most files were destroyed in 1973 on direct orders from CIA Director Richard Helms. Frank Olson's death remains officially ruled a suicide. His family has never accepted that verdict. The full truth of MKUltra has never been fully established, and may never be, and